Welcome to Elevated, a place where the mystical meets the everyday. I am Dawn, a stay-at-home mom to a wild and spirited boy, and a guide in the realms of Reiki, Akashic Records, natural healing, and soulful living. Here, we'll talk energy, intuition, spirituality, but also the realness of motherhood, wellness, and creating balance in the chaos of it all. So grab your tea, take a deep breath, and join me as we explore healing, alignment, and the beauty of both the magical and the messy. Welcome to Elevated. Welcome back, beautiful souls, to another episode of Elevated. I'm Dawn. I'm your host, just to do a little bit of what's been going on in my life. Before we get into what this episode is about, have our elf, Logan. He is back. I'm recording on December 1st for this. So he just came back today. He came back with a donut, and the sign said, "Do not worry, I am back." And something about how you're going to have a whole, meaning like the whole of the donut, of fun this Christmas season. And the donut shop was all set up, and he had a donut for my son and a donut for my husband. And my son and I, we just shared the donut. It was wonderful. My son was absolutely excited this morning that the elf was back. Then we got our advent calendars. So my mom actually got an advent calendar for my little guy, and she does this every year for the grandkids. And this year he got an advent calendar of 24 vehicles. And today he got, I think it was a dump truck or a rock truck. They're die cast, so they're good shape, and he absolutely loved it. His elf brought him a John Deere Christmas decoration advent calendar as well. So every single day he gets a new John Deere Christmas ornament. They're just really thick plastic with a picture on them. So it works out perfect for his little Christmas tree. And then we're doing Bookmas as well. So he got a new book today. He got the Into the Wild Christmas, and it's this series of the bear, moose, and beaver, which you can find through Little Blue House or Hatley. They always sell them. It is so cute. He absolutely loved it. He was so spoiled this morning. He just had such a blast. And all day he kept looking. He's like, "The elf is still here. The elf is still here. The elf is still here." And I'm like, yeah, the elf is going to be here all day. I said, and then he goes back to Santa and he reports back to Santa how you were today, that type of thing. And then he comes back like later tonight and he's like, okay. And then this morning he was like, how did the elf get in? Like, the elf doesn't have an elf door. So we're like, I don't know how he got in. So my son went outside and he literally was in the garage and he's looking around. He's like, I don't know how the elf got in. And most of the day he spent trying to figure out how the elf got into the house. And it was so, so cute. I know that some elves have elf doors. I don't know if we're going to get that, but we don't have the elf book. So we asked our elf if he could maybe bring the elf book so that we could read the elf book. What else? Oh, my son's been getting sick since Thursday night. So what happened was he had play school Tuesday, Thursday this week. Thursday, they went to the post office and had a tour and mailed some letters. It was just so cute. And then he came home Thursday, had his nap, normal day. Everything seemed pretty normal. Went to bed really well. Him and I room share, and I'm laying on my bed and he gets up. And all of a sudden he sits up and I'm like, this is weird. And it was late. It was like 11:30ish. And he sits up and he kind of coughs. And then I just heard the puke. And I was like, oh my gosh. And this kid has only ever once before had projectile puke. And it was because I gave him way too much brewer's yeast. And it just filled his stomach and he puked it out, which is my fault. But this time I was like, what the heck? Anyways, super, super sick. I was like, oh my goodness, get him up. And he's super calm. And I was like, okay, buddy. I'm like, come on. And I like get him to the toilet. I go to my husband's and my room. And I was like, hey, Tim, can you come help us? And he's like, yeah. And he doesn't know what's going on. Super calm. We get to the toilet. My son's puking in the toilet, not getting upset, nothing like that. And then we cleaned up everything. and we came down into my studio. I have a bed down here. So we came down, spent the night down here, and he got sick a couple of times that night. But I found if he was sitting up, he was okay. So we sat on the bigger bed together and I held him. And as long as he, like I said, was sitting up, he wasn't getting sick. So I think he got sick 2 or 3 more times that day. Friday, nothing happened. He was fine. We decided, okay, he's feeling better. He said he was feeling better. And we took him to the government house to see Santa and Mrs. Claus. She was reading books there and to check it out. It's a really cool event that they do. And Mrs. Claus just so happened to read the Berenstain Bears Santa Bear, and he loves the Berenstain Bears, so that was really cool. I don't want to say coincidence, but we'll say synchronicity anyways. And then we got home, went to bed, and all of a sudden, again, same thing. He just woke up projectile puking everywhere. And I was like, whoa. So we had his bowl, did that again, kept him sitting upright so he wasn't puking, because every time he laid down, he would be puking. And he was perfectly fine. He had that one time that he puked. That was it. All day Saturday, he was perfectly fine. All day Sunday, he was perfectly fine. All day today, he was perfectly fine. And then at supper time, I made basically a full-on turkey dinner. And he's been excited about it. We've been talking about it for a few days now. I'm like, yeah, we're going to do this. And he's like, oh, yeah, I love it. I love stuffing. I was like, yeah, what kid doesn't love stuffing? Like, be honest, I love stuffing. And I made his supper. He helped make the supper, everything like that. We're sitting down. All of a sudden, he wants hugs and he doesn't want to eat. And you could just tell, like, he's off. And I'm like, that's weird. And he goes, so gross, so gross. I'm like, okay. I was like, you eat all of this stuff normally. Like, why would it be gross today? He's like, so gross. I'm like, whatever. So he asked to be let down from his chair. And I was like, yep, that's fine. So I put him down. He went to the couch. And then he said again that he had to go to the bathroom. And he went to the bathroom before supper. So I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So my husband takes him in. All of a sudden, he's on the toilet. And he's just like crying and sort of in pain and whining. And I go in there, I'm like, hey buddy, what's wrong? He's like, my tummy hurts, my stomach hurts, my stomach hurts. And I'm like, okay, like, where does it hurt? And he's like, know how to poop. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So I get him off the toilet and he keeps telling me his stomach hurts. I was like, hey, I said, well, let's just go sit down on the couch and we'll just watch some TV. We're sitting down on the couch, we're under a blanket. Him and I are just sort of like chit-chatting, talking. And next thing you know, projectile puke everywhere. Like the most I have seen him puke in the last couple of days. I get him to the bathroom and we run a bath and we get him all cleaned up and everything like that. We get pajamas put on him and I go sit down and we're watching TV. And he sat there for quite a while. Like, he's 3.5, so it's not like he normally sits and watches a movie. He watched the whole Santa Claus 2 movie from start to finish, didn't really move. Our dog sat with him the whole time. Now, we have 3 dogs, but this one is his dog, basically. Like, she has been attached to him pretty much since he's been a little newborn, probably like 3 months old. And she was like right on top of him, wouldn't leave him, just laid with him. I was like, oh my goodness. He didn't get sick. We gave him a little bit of chamomile and mint tea to help his stomach because he kept saying how his stomach was sore. And I was like, that's understandable. So I'm thinking maybe it's bloating or something like that. But the only thing that I can think of is Friday afternoon, we made bone broth hot chocolate and I used a cacao powder in there. And then today he had gone outside. He was outside for over an hour. He was having a blast. He took his little electric bike out in the snow. Yes, we have snow now. A skiff, not much, but we have snow. And he was doing burnouts in the snow with it and just trying to fishtail. It's hilarious. I'm like, oh my goodness, you're only 3.5 and I'm dealing with this, but whatever. So he played outside for an hour for sure. And then when we came in, he wanted hot chocolate and we had just made homemade marshmallows yesterday. And I was like, yeah, sure. We can have a little bit of hot chocolate and homemade marshmallows. Like, that's fine, right? It's a homemade hot chocolate that I make. So I use a powdered milk, which is grass-fed powder milk, and then cacao powder and some sugar. And then homemade marshmallows, which we literally used water, gelatin, some vanilla, and honey. Like, nothing that is out of the ordinary for him. And it was an hour after he had his hot chocolate that he got sick today. And then again, we had the bone broth hot chocolate on Friday. So I'm like, is it something to do with the hot chocolate? Like, was it too much milk today for him? Was it the cacao powder, and I just feel like it's the hot chocolate that's making him sick. And he even said no more hot chocolate. So I was like, okay, well, I guess that makes my winter easy because he's been really glued to having hot chocolate lately. So that's what we've been dealing with. So I hope he's been doing really good right now. My husband put him to bed, but he seemed to be perfectly fine after. He had a muffin and a half after the movie. He said his stomach was fine. So we'll see. I got his bowl there just in case. But that is what we have been dealing with for the last few days. But what I wanted to talk about today on this podcast was not about my son getting sick. I am so excited to do a podcast today on Yule. Yes, we're going to do it on Yule. So what I wanted to do a podcast on today is something that is ancient. It's older than our modern holidays, older than Christianity itself, older than many cultures that have come and gone. Today, we're going to explore Yule, the ancient celebration of the winter solstice. I am so excited about this topic. This episode will be deep and layered. There's going to be some history lessons, some spiritual journeys. There's going to be some folklore in there. There's going to be some energetic exploration. We're going to explore the traditions and the symbolisms and the forgotten meanings behind our modern holidays, and how Yule can become a spiritual practice woven into even Reiki and the Akashic records. So if you would like, if you have the ability, if you're actually at home and you kind of want to make this a little Christmassy and a little bit spiritual, light a candle. Light a candle if you feel called to. Wrap up in something warm and cozy. Maybe grab a tea, maybe a hot chocolate, whatever you would like. And let's begin this journey into the longest night of the year and the first spark of returning light. Yule is an ancient festival which is created around the winter solstice, typically around December 22nd in the Northern Hemisphere. It marks the longest night and the rebirth of the sun or the return of the light. But Yule is more than just a date. It is a spiritual season, a turning of the earth's wheel, a recognition that even in darkness, life stirs. And to ancient peoples, the winter solstice was not simply a celestial event. It was a moment of spiritual significance. The entire world seemed to pause. The sun sat low in the sky, days were short, nights were long, food was scarce, darkness ruled, and then the sun rises ever so slightly sooner. Light starts to return. Hope starts to return. Yule, at its essence, is a celebration of rebirth, new beginnings, spiritual illumination, and the promise that darkness never lasts forever. This is the great exhale of winter, a cosmic reminder that the cycle of life continues. Yule comes from the Old Norse word Yule, part of the ancient Germanic and Scandinavian midwinter festivals, but the festival roots reach even deeper. So for the ancient Germanic and Norse culture, Yule was one of the most sacred festivals of the year. It was tied to cycles of nature, the wild hunt, which was led by Odin or sometimes other deities. I want to check up on Odin. I don't know anything about Odin, but now I'm excited to find out more. Ancestor veneration, protection rituals, feasting and gathering, the honoring of the sun's rebirth. The Yule season could last 12 days, which is exactly what evolved into the 12 days of Christmas. The Celtic Druids also celebrated the solstice. To them, the world existed in a delicate balance between light and darkness. On Yule, they honored the Oak King and the Holly King, sacred evergreen plants, the rebirth of the sun, the turning of the wheel of the year. And then prehistoric solstice cultures, so before the Norse, before the Celtic peoples, before even recorded history, humans watched the sun with reverence. So ancient structures like the Stonehenge, like the New granage, and many solstice-aligned megaliths celebrated the returning light. These were places built to capture that one impossible moment, the rising sun on the winter solstice. Across cultures from Europe to the Arctic to the Middle East, the longest night was seen as a time of magic, transition, and cosmic renewal. This is Yule's true origin, not a single culture, but the universal human relationship with the sun. So why don't we celebrate Yule today? Yule didn't vanish, it transformed. And I don't want to offend anybody, but this is truth, so I'm going to say it. So trigger warning, but Yule didn't vanish, it transformed. When Christianity spread through Europe, it encountered many deeply rooted pagan solstice festivals. These weren't small or fringe. They were central to community life. Rather than abolish them, early Christians adapted many of these celebrations, merging them with Christian symbolism. This is where we began to see Yule merging into Christmas, pagan solstice rituals becoming a Christian tradition, symbolic elements being repurposed. Yule transition remained, but their meanings were renamed or forgotten. Many people don't realize they are celebrating Yule because most modern winter holiday traditions actually come from Yule, not from the later Christian overlay. The name Yule faded, but the practices survived. Why don't we celebrate it in its pure ancient form today? Because solstice traditions were absorbed into Christmas. Medieval church authorities discarded pagan rituals. Industrialization shifted communities away from nature-based calendars. Many of the original meanings were lost. However, in recent decades, there's been a huge revival of interest in solstice traditions, nature, spirituality, witchcraft, and old European customs. Yule is returning, not as a religion, but as a way to reconnect with the cycles of nature. Let's talk about some ancient Yule traditions. I'm going to walk you guys through a few of the major Yule customs, what their symbolism is, and how they were practiced and what they actually meant. Number 1, the Yule log. Now, as a child, we had a Yule log. Every year, we brought it out. It was a half piece of birch. We literally took plastic pine branches and we glued them on there, and we had, I think it was 3, maybe 4 candles, and we had glitter on this Yule log, and I'm sure there's pine cones on this Yule log, and we had this Yule log forever since I can remember. But this year, I want to make a Yule log. Actually, last year I wanted to make a Yule log too and just never got around to it. And then we kind of found one that'll work, that will end up burning this year, but I want to make one just to have that will always stay just in the house. So we'll have to use like fake branches and stuff, which I would rather use the real ones, but for decoration purposes, we'll have to use the fake ones. Perhaps I'm going to say that the Yule log is the most iconic symbol of Yule, right? It's called the Yule log for a reason. And what is a Yule log? A large log, historically from oak or ash or sometimes birch. It was chosen very carefully. It was decorated, blessed, and burned on the hearth on the solstice. What you need. It's a large log. Often it was huge, and it was meant to burn for 12 days. There was evergreen branches on it. There was herbs such as rosemary, pine, frankincense. There was ribbons or carvings. There was wine or oil to anoint it. Sometimes runes were carved for protection. Why did they do it? The Yule log represented the returning sun, the warmth of the community, the burning away of the old cycle, protection from negative forces, blessings for the coming year. It was believed the longer the log burned, the more prosperous and protected the household would be. Families or whole villages would select the perfect log, and then they would decorate it with the evergreens, bless it with the herbs, place it in the hearth with ceremony, light it on the longest night, keep the ashes for rituals throughout the year. Some cultures saved a piece of the log to light next year's Yule fire. I like that. Symbolizing continuity and lineage. Today, we keep the symbol through decorative Yule logs. Let's talk about your Christmas tree. So the evergreens. So your pine, your fir, your holly, your ivy, the yew, they're sacred during Yule because they remained alive when the rest of nature appeared dead. Evergreen symbolizes eternal life, resilience, protection against dark spirits, the promise of spring. The Christmas tree became the modern tradition. We have wreaths, we have garlands, but their roots are eternally Yule based. So anytime that you're doing any sort of evergreen, it's all Yule based due to the fact that it's eternal life, resilience, protection against dark spirits, and the promise of spring. I love decorating with evergreens. I'm just such a tree person, but not a leafy tree person. I'm an evergreen tree person. And it's funny because I didn't really ever look into what the meaning of evergreens are, but I love what they symbolize: the eternal life, the resilience, the protection against the dark spirits, and the promise of the spring. I just love that. I will say my favorite place to go is to the mountains because of the evergreens, and I'm very, very much attached to the cedars. So every year I make front porch decorations with evergreens. So I have cedars in there, I have Scotch pine, I have your basic jack pine. The odd time I'll put like a chunk of birch in there. This year I got a little bit of dogwood as well to put in there. It just makes me so happy to make those. And I make them, well, I shouldn't say every year, but I try to make them every year. And then I put in pine cones that I can actually get from the mountains and that kind of thing. And then on my door, I don't always do a wreath, but I'll do a swag and I'll put that on there. I love my Christmas tree with all the lights. We got my son a live Christmas tree this year for his room. And I just love that it's actually living. We have, are they called the North Folk pine or the North pine? But we got North Folk pine, maybe is what it's called. But we got 2 of those in our house all year round. Like, I love pine trees. Yule tradition would be the Holly King and the Oak King. And it's a powerful piece of Celtic mythology. And the myth says that the Holly King rules the dark half of the year. So it's the summer solstice to the winter solstice. And then the Oak King rules the light half of the year, which is the winter solstice to the summer solstice. And then on Yule, the Oak King is reborn, the light returns. So this story symbolizes the cosmic balance of duality, which is huge when you're looking at it from an energetic and spiritual standpoint. Duality is something that we have everywhere. You can't have good without bad. You can't have happy without sad. You can't have sick without healthy, right? You need both of those. And then the Feast of the Yule. So the ancient Yule celebrations included feasting, often lasting days. Food symbolizes abundance during scarcity, community sharing, gratitude to the gods, hope for survival throughout the winter. And they would feast on roasted meats, root vegetables, and bread, mead and cider. And today's Christmas dinner is a modern Yule feast. I'm just saying. There was gift giving as well. So many assume Christians invented gift giving, but it's actually a Yule tradition. In Norse culture, people exchanged handmade goods, tools, food, carved objects, protective ruin pieces, and these gifts had meaning. They were blessings for the year ahead. Christmas inherited this, but Yule actually birthed it. And then there's the 12 days of Yule. So Yule is not a single night. It is a 12-day festival reflecting lunar cycles and ancient calendars. That became the 12 days of Christmas, which I absolutely love. And then there was the caroling and the wassailing. So there was wassailing and caroling. And wassail originally meant be well or be whole. And communities would travel house to house, singing blessings, sharing warm spiced cider, wishing health and fertility. This became known as modern caroling. And then there was the wild hunt. It's a darker Yule tradition from the Norse folk. It was believed that during the longest nights, Odin, remember, who is a spiritual form or a deity, or other spiritual beings or other supernatural beings, rode across the skies with a host of spirits. People stayed indoors for protection, lit fires, and performed rituals. This tradition evolved into aspects of Santa Claus, Odin with his long beard riding the skies. So that's kind of interesting. I wonder if I could do a bit of a podcast on Odin and Santa Claus. Maybe we'll do that in the next little bit. And then the Yule traditions that we still practice today, there's so many of them. Like, so many modern Christmas traditions are directly descended from Yule. Like, we have the Christmas tree, and then there's the Yule evergreens. We have wreaths, which is protection and charm circles. We have gift giving, which is the Yule blessings. We have Santa Claus, which is Odin from the Wild Hunt. We have caroling, which is wassailing. We have Christmas ham, Yule boar sacrifice. We have burning candles, which is Yule log symbolism. We have 12 days of Christmas, 12 days of Yule, festive feasting, Yule feasts, hanging stockings, so offerings for visiting spirits, bells, protection against dark winter energies. So even the date December 25th, originally the Roman birth of the sun festival, was chosen to align with the solstice rebirth traditions. We celebrate Yule constantly. We just call it something else. So what's the spiritual meaning of Yule? Yule's deeper meaning includes rebirth, hope, inner illumination, patience, trust in the cycles of nature, the return of balance, shadow work and reflection, ancestor connection, slowing down. So Yule asks us what needs to die away, what is ready to be reborn, where is the light returning in your life. And then how does Yule and Reiki play a part? Yule energy integrates beautifully with Reiki, and Reiki is life force. During Yule, the solar energy begins increasing again. Reiki practitioners can channel returning light, use solstice energy for renewal, cleanse old energetic cycles, set intentions aligned with rebirth, and fire Reiki and Yule log energy. Symbolically burn old patterns, emotional heaviness, energetic blockages. Use candles or fire safely to hold intention while doing Reiki and self-healing. And then there's the evergreen energy in Reiki. So evergreen plants symbolize protection, and you can incorporate pine, cedar, juniper into the Reiki sessions for grounding and clearing. You can do a Yule Reiki meditation. Visualizing light returning into the body is a beautiful addition to Yule spiritual practices. And then how does Yule work with the Akashic records? Well, Yule opens a powerful portal in the Akashic records. The longest night, journey into shadow records. This is the time to explore past life patterns, ancestral contracts, soul wounds from previous winters, karmic cycles ready to dissolve. The darkness of Yule is fertile. It's not frightening. The rebirth of the sun and the timeline renewal. So in the records, you can reset energetic timelines, close cycles, open new soul paths aligned with light, activate your next soul chapter. There is the ancestor veneration. Yule was historically a time of honoring the dead. In the records, this becomes meeting ancestors, healing their wounds through you, receiving ancestral guidance for the coming year. They're setting the intentions through the Akashic field. So Yule offers a potent moment to write new Akashic soul contracts aligning with purpose, abundance, healing, spiritual growth. The veil is still thin at this time. The records are clear, and this is one of the most powerful times of the year for spiritual work. We're just not told that. We always were told Halloween was. So Yule is older than any modern holiday, older than Christianity, older than civilizations that built stone circles, carved ruins, or worshipped in groves. Yet its energy is eternal, the return of light after darkness. We celebrate Yule every year, whether we call it that or not. We bring evergreens inside. We light candles. We give gifts. We gather as communities. We feast. We reflect. We hope. Today, we reconnect consciously with what our ancestors always knew. Light always returns. I found out about Yule watching Alaska: The Last Frontier. And I didn't really pay attention to it when I was watching it. Like, they do Yule. I'm like, that's weird, but it was always around the Christmas season. So I was like, oh, they're in Alaska. They just kind of probably call it something different. No big deal. And then when Ty was maybe 1, he walked out of his room one night and he came out and we were watching Alaska: The Last Frontier. And he sat there engrossed in the show. I don't know if there was like a cow on there or what it was, but he was just engrossed in the show. So we as parents thought that this was a really good show for him to watch. On the show, as we were watching some of the seasons, we would get to the quote unquote Christmas episode, but it was always about Yule. And as I'm learning about Yule, because it kept coming up last year, I just felt sort of connected to do some Yule stuff. But when the solstice came, I just didn't get outside. I don't know if it was like really cold, if we were really busy. I don't know what exactly happened. I just know that we didn't get to do it. Not realizing that Yule was 12 days. I thought it was literally only the solstice. So this year on my TikTok, there was so much Yule stuff coming up. And even my Facebook, it's like Yule, Yule, Yule. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a quick podcast on what Yule is because I need to learn. I research it and I learn. And I'm really, really excited to dive even deeper and really start doing the 12 days of Yule. I want to do the herbs. I want to do the Yule log. I want to do the burning. Now, I can't burn a log for 12 days. Let's just be realistic here. But I can burn a log on the solstice. And I'm going to do that this year. I'm going to set my intentions this year. I'm going to go into the Akashic records. I'm going to do some ancestral healing that probably needs to be done and working with my ancestors. And I'm going to clear some of my blocks that I have. And I feel like that is going to be amazing. And this year too, for the first time in I don't know how many years, I'm being so intentional. I'm not going overboard. Of course, I have a little 3.5-year-old and Christmas, I want to be magical, but I want us to build traditions. I want us to build something that when he looks back on it, he can say, I really love that Yule log. I want him just to have that. I want him to know the Yule side of things. I want to build those traditions with them. So I really want to do a deep dive into the actual Yule traditions, maybe go through a lot more in the next episode of what the tradition is and how can we incorporate it into today's modern society. What do we need to do? What does it mean? Are we kind of doing things like we do decorate our Christmas trees? And every time you're putting on those decorations, it's talking to the ancestors and it's connecting with all of that. Like I do see that because there's a lot of times that our decorations aren't just ones that we bought from the store that are aesthetically pleasing every single year. A lot of us, our Christmas trees are decorated with decorations we got from somebody that we bought for a reason. It's just a very meaningful Christmas tree. I like that. And bringing in the ancestral part of it and the memories of all of it. As you're hanging those up, you're bringing in that memory and you're becoming one almost with your Christmas tree again. Really, I just truly want to do more Yule and maybe less commercialized Christmas. And this year too, just on a whim, like we're doing a few more homemade gifts for my son's play school kids. They're getting a simple homemade Play-Doh with a cookie cutter. Like that's their gift. And then his teachers are getting simmer pots, and he bought them a really nice Christmas decoration when we were on holidays. We have things like that we're doing that are hopefully meaningful. I'm trying to do a lot more sort of thoughtful homemade gifts if I can. I'm not going to say the rest of them because if people are listening, I don't want to ruin it for them. That's what we're trying to do. I think for anyone, I think it would be great to incorporate that a little bit more. And I've seen a lot too on social media about having, is it the Little Women's Christmas? I've never read the book, so I don't know anything about it, but it seems like there's like paper Christmas chains being made and stuff like that, and you're hanging up just sort of homemade decorations, which would be nice, like just simple ease of it all. because I think that's what Yule was, is it wasn't as commercialized as what it is now. It is about family, it's about friends, it's about connecting, it's about renewal and hope and your ancestors, but also knowing that the dark is no longer going to be happening and bringing in that light and celebrating that light. And I love that. Yule, when I learned about it, I liked the idea. When I heard it on the Alaska frontier, I thought it was great, but I just never understood it enough. And now that I'm seeing it more and learning about it more, it's something I definitely want to incorporate more and more and more and take out that commercial aspect of Christmas and maybe just focus on Yule in general. Thank you for joining me for this exploration of what Yule is. May the solstice season bring renewal, hope, clarity, and peace. May the returning of the light illuminate your path in this life and across all timelines. If you liked what you heard today, can you please share it with people, your friends, your family, your coworkers, just your, social media, Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok page would be wonderful. Can you please like, rate, and review, because that helps me grow as well and get pushed out more. And I'm really, really, really trying to grow my audience. One of my 2026 goals is to grow my podcast audience. And the other one is, if you want to book a session with me, we can do Reiki, we can do Akashic Records. We know from this episode that Reiki is going to help with old patterns, emotional heaviness, energetic blocks. We can work with that. We can set intentions aligned with rebirth. We can cleanse old energetic cycles. And then with your Akashic Records, if you wanted to book with me there, we can work on past life patterns, ancestral contracts, soul wounds from previous winters or even previous lifetimes, to be honest with you. We can work on karmic cycles that are ready to dissolve. We can reset energetic timelines. We can close cycles. We can open new soul paths that align with the light. We can activate your next soul chapter if that's what you want. We can meet your ancestors. We can heal your wounds and their wounds through you. You can receive ancestral guidance for the coming year if you wanted. All that can be done with the Akashic Records, and you can do so much too with Reiki. So if you want to book a session with me, please email elevatedsoulhealing@gmail.com. Thank you very, very, very much. Again, email me elevatedsoulhealing@gmail.com. I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will talk to you next week. Thank you.